Hi, and welcome to the Virgin River Rewatch podcast. I'm Tracy,
I'm Gigi.
and here we are in our season 2 installment of the Virgin River Rewatch podcast. Today I am having my caffeinated beverage, and because right now it is almost September, they have just brought out some of the pumpkin flavors of coffee that I just love so much. And one of my favorite pumpkin lattes is at Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. I'm not endorsing, I'm not being paid to say that. It really is. It's like a pumpkin pie in a cup. I can't, if you
Yeah,
like pumpkin,
I
I
don't do,
know you don't do
yeah,
pumpkin. I
I
know.
don't do pumpkin.
That's fine.
If
I
they
will
had,
have
if it
enough for
had
both
sweet
of us.
potato, if it had sweet potato, I'd be right
I
there.
don't.
But pumpkin, no.
Sweet potato coffee. I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no. I'm just gonna stick with my pumpkin pie in a cup. It is so yummy, and trust me, I've had pumpkin coffees in many places, and as my personal favorite, is the one
Take
at.
my word for it, people. She does.
It's the only time I go there. I don't visit there all year except for that. As soon as they have it, I go and get it, and I get one or two a week, and that's what gets me through my holiday season. So, 'tis the season. We're starting early. The pumpkins have come to light. So, Gigi, what are you drinking today?
Well, today I am having matcha. So it's a
Oh,
stronger version.
matcha.
It's a stronger version of green tea. So, and actually, this is, and of course, it's hot,
Of
which
course.
basically drives Tracy
Whatever.
crazy.
Whatever. You and your hot coffee people. I don't understand it, but it's okay. Love you the same. It's
So
fine.
that's what I'm having today.
That's all right. I don't like matcha either, so I'm just not on board with your drink in any respect. I'm sorry. I can't help it.
That's okay. It's all right. You know, we're best of friends. We don't have to like the same things.
Absolutely. Just like you like to read, I don't. It's
Well,
fine.
your reading, as I said, your reading version is very different. It's still reading,
It
but
is. I'm
you
being
know,
let's put it this way. I don't read books, but I will be happy to let someone read them to
somebody
me.
read to you. Well, I think you and Alex have a lot in common as far as that's concerned.
Yes, apparently
So,
so, which is so funny. But anyway,
yes.
I digress.
Hmm.
Okay. So, here we go. Let's get started.
This is season 2, episode 2, Taken by Surprise.
All right. And the description is despite Mel's efforts, Charmaine's stay at Hope's house gets off to a rocky start. A situation involving Paige's past intensifies unexpectedly. Now, this episode is probably one, it's like the favorite of season 2, and probably one of the most rewatched episodes of the whole show. So, little tidbit. So,
Juicy.
oh yes, it's a good one. All right. When we left Mel in the last episode, she was cleaning up the kitchen at the end of the day after researching some things for Charmaine and her condition, and was faced with an unexpected visitor in the back door who looked a bit worn out. Poor kid looks like he could use a hand. He's not doing well, and he could be a bit strung out, is the consensus I think we went with.
Yes.
And he definitely startled Mel, who was just trying to clean the coffee pot out. And so she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Can I help you?" And he's like, "I'm hurt." Now you can see he's got a black eye, and he's kind of dirty, and he's whatever. Now, at the same time that she's having this interaction, let's call it, with this young man, we're using that term loosely. Um, Jack is walking in the front gate. Now, he probably, after talking to Preacher and, basically probably confessing for the first time out loud that he's in love with
Exactly.
Mel.
He's in love with. I think this is the first time we hear him say it.
He actually he didn't he just said it out loud to, and of course it had to be Preacher. I mean, if he wasn't going to tell Mel the first time, then he was going to tell Preacher the first. That's his best friend. But he sort of like, okay, now that I've said it out loud, I feel like I just need to go talk to her because he is over there all the time, running into her, taking her places, checking in, whatever he has to do to be around her as much as possible, even if they're not getting along. And you can imagine also how appreciative he is for her deciding to go ahead and treat Charmaine, even though she absolutely said she would never do that.
Yep.
So he's gonna do whatever he can do and just be the whatever person he can be to her. Maybe she'll come around, is probably what he's thinking. If I just wear her down with my charm and dimples and my big blue eyes, maybe she'll come around. So he stops by and he's walking through the gate and heading up, to the door.
And he's lingering. He's not sure if he should approach.
Yeah, he's thinking about it. He's like, should I? I don't know. Maybe. Now, at the same time, this person who surprised Mel in the back door is looking for drugs. And she's like, we don't keep narcotics on the premises.
Yeah, because he's asking for oxy.
He wants oxy.
And she's like, nope. And he's like,
she's like, oh, you need some help. Can I look at your eye? He's like, that's why I need the oxy. So she's starting to try to get away, and he grabs a knife, and she's holding her hands up with one hand and the coffee pot with the other. And then he rushes her, and she winds up dropping the coffee pot, which makes Jack, it startles him. He's like, was that a crash? And he's like, Mel?
No. And then Mel screams, and then he hears, and
you know Jack, if his woman's in trouble, he's gonna come rushing through the door.
So he's about to knock down Doc's door.
Well, it's locked, and he barges his way through the red doors. There's a vestibule, and then he opens up the stained glass, and he stops her, and he's like, hey, all right. And she's like, let her go, and you can just walk right out of here. He's not without the drugs. And he's got a knife to Mel, and Jack's like, hands up, I'll help you look for him. And as soon as the guy moves his hand down, he grabs the knife, and the guy winds up pushing the two of them. Both Mel and Jack fall, and the guy runs out the back door. He looks for him. He's gone. Jack comes back. He checks on Mel, helps her get up, because she's on the floor. And she limps because she's hurt her ankle. And he's like, are you okay? And she's like, oh my gosh. And he's like, just catch your breath. Just take a deep breath. You're okay. She's like, I'm okay. And she's just in shock. But her ankle hurts. So he gets up and he checks the door. She's holding her ankle. And she's like, you know what? It's my fault. It's my fault for not locking the back door. And he was like, yeah, but wait a second. You shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to lock the door. This is Virgin River. I mean, nobody locks the doors.
That's what I was about to say. Nobody locks the door in this town. So I think that's why the guy, he assumed that when he walked into the clinic, the door wouldn't be locked either.
Right.
Because nobody locks their doors there.
Right, exactly.
So
he's like, well, what was he here for? Drugs? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, oh, man, look, is this town going to pot or not? I mean, literally. And so he asks about her ankle, and she's like, yeah, I think I tweaked it a little bit or something. And he was like, oh, it could have been so much worse.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, but it wasn't. Because she's still kind of over him. Like, she doesn't want to deal with him. This whole situation is just still pissing her off. And so she's like, I'll take you home. And he's like, no, I'm fine. I got it. And then she tries to walk, and she can't. It's her right ankle, so how is she going to drive? So he takes her arm over his shoulder, and he's helping her walk. And he's like, well, I'll call Doc from the car. We'll call the sheriff. Everything will be fine. Now, let me give you a little tidbit. So in this particular scene, this show does not have a ton of stunts. Generally, there's not a lot of there's some fighting scenes, and I don't know how much of that I know there are stunt doubles, and I know that some of the things are done by other people, especially the really hard falls and things like that. Because if you look at the Instagram pages, sometimes there'll be pictures of the people that are their stunt doubles or their whatever, and those are the actors aren't expected to do some of those things. That's why they hire people to do them for them. But I guess in this particular scene, Alex, who plays Mel, Alex Breckenridge, she was like, it's just a fall. I think I can fall down, and they wound up just letting her do that scene herself. So I don't know if I heard an interview or read that somewhere, but she was like, you don't need a stunt double to fall down. So she wanted to do that herself. She thought it would look more realistic, that it would be more true to what was actually going on, and that it would be kind of weird to try and have somebody do that when it wasn't that big of a stunt. So she wound up doing that herself. There were no ankles injured in the course of that scene, so everyone is fine. But anyway, so I thought I'd throw that in. Anyway.
Very good. Thank you for that info.
No problem. So of course the next scene, here we are with the gorgeous scenery of the mountains in the back.
And the river running through.
Virgin River. There's so no virgins in Virgin River. I just need to say that. All the virgins.
Well,
it's fine.
Maybe the teenagers.
No, not even them. Just give them a chance. Just wait. It's happening. Okay, so we're back at Mel's cabin, her adorable little cabin that everyone loves so much. And she's sitting on her bed and she's holding her ankle, and Jack is searching through her adorable little freezer looking for some ice. And
he's like, all you have in stock is frozen vegetables.
Yes. No ice. And he's going to use peas. So
I think that's a global thing. When nobody can find ice for an ice pack, they use a pack of peas.
Peas, yes. Peas and carrots, or just peas, make the perfect ice pack. Mushy peas after isn't fun, but it does work in the moment. So, and she was like, yeah, I don't know why there's so many frozen vegetables in my freezer. Like, they just showed up one day. And Jack does know why. And it's... So
that's a hope.
Yeah. Apparently, when she had her heart attack and Doc was trying to make sure she was eating healthy, he bought a whole bunch of vegetables and put them in her freezer. And Hope didn't want him to find them in the trash because she wasn't eating frozen vegetables. And so she stuffed them in Mel's freezer. And they were just there one day.
She was gone for several weeks, so that's a good place to put them.
And Mel's like, are you serious? And he's like, how do you even know that? It's like, oh, well, she told me a while back. And she's like, oh my gosh, she truly has no boundaries. So he gets her a pillow. And he's like, look, the last thing I would be doing is defending Hope. But I mean, it is kind of sweet that she didn't want to hurt Doc's feelings by, throwing away all the vegetables. It's kind of sweet. So he takes a towel and he's putting the peas on her and he's wrapping it up. And she was like, wow, it's great that you can find a positive way to describe Hope's lunacy, but okay, whatever. And so he's wrapping her ankle up with the towel and the peas and everything. And she's like, you don't have to do that. I can do that. I mean, she is a nurse. And he's like, no, just, you got to stay off of it. You'll feel better in the morning and we have to get you some ibuprofen. Like, who's the nurse here? Just want to say, who's the nurse? Well, he knows what to do.
It's Nurse Love.
So he's like, you need some ibuprofen, and she tells him where it is, and so he goes to get it, and while he's heading over, the phone rings, and they've already called the sheriff, and she's like, wow, a knife fight and the sheriff. Maybe tomorrow we can pan for gold. It's like, I mean, this chick has been in town, what, a month?
Maybe more.
Well, you figure the day of the first date, she had talked about it was just about a month that her 30 days were almost up, which was technically, I guess it's been longer because she was gone for 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, so let's say 2 months. Let's say 2 months. In the 2 months she's been there, she's been kidnapped by pot farmers, held hostage. She's been held up by knife point. I mean... She's had to start living in a cabin that was dilapidated at best and was threatened to be shot at because Doc didn't want her to work with him. So, I don't know. I mean, she really had nowhere to go if she's still sticking around because most people would have left on one of those things. But I agree with you. She stuck it out. And because she stuck it out, look at this awesome cabin she gets to live in. And Doc is coming around and being she's going to him for advice. Like clearly their relationship has changed significantly.
And who ever thought that would be a possibility?
I know, man. Yeah. Those first couple of weeks where all he did was yell at her and talk down to her and order her around.
And fired her.
Yes. And threatened to shoot her because, that's what you do.
That's all in a day's work, I could
Yeah.
say.
And now she's going to him for advice, and she's got
Yeah.
Jack coming to her rescue, and I think things are turning around. They might be turning around for her. So
we'll see.
so he brings her the ibuprofen, and she's trying to fix the pillows, and one of the pillows drops, and he of course has to lift it over her head, and they get all close and cozy, and the staring, and it's like they freeze.
I know, and it's like, this is like one of my romance novel books where, the pulses are racing.
Yeah, it's like the sexual tension is like you could cut the air with a knife. And they're just like, I should really get going and let you get some sleep. She's like, yeah, thanks. You're welcome. And he takes his booty right out the door.
He's going to give her that space.
Yep. And the second he walks out the door, she just like exhales.
Yep. And all she's left with is a pack of frozen peas.
Yep. So it's the next morning. And of course, it starts with the lovely scenery. And Paige is in her kitchen because, she has a bakery truck. And she's got lots of things that have to be baked every day.
That's true.
And so she's hard at work in the kitchen. And
we notice
she's not looking so good.
She's not looking so good.
Out of the bedroom comes her ex-husband, and she has a bruised cheek and a bruised lip, and her makeup is running. Her nose is bleeding. She looks like she's been crying. And he was like, we have to get packed.
Yeah, and it's like he wants to take her back to Florida. And he got the unlitigated goal to try to go in for a kiss.
Yeah.
Buddy boy. Huh.
And he's like, don't think about doing something stupid. Because the next time I find you, he's not going to be nice. And she just stands there and takes it. Because what else can she do? I mean, he's like 6'3" and she's like 5'4".
Yeah.
And she's just very softly crying. He's going to go take a shower. So
we come to the clinic and we see Doc's name and her name underneath written in paper.
Yes, which she finds really nice.
Yes, her name. She does. And so in comes Charmaine and Jack.
Yep.
For their appointment. So
first thing you do is talk about what happened the night before. Any leads? They don't have many resources. They promise they'll do something. And Jack's like, that's not enough. And he's like, well, fortunately, Mel wasn't hurt. I mean, seriously. But, we can't just do nothing. I mean, we can beef up security or whatever. And he's like, I can put a deadbolt. That sounds good. And have somebody I can call and maybe they can help. And he asks about her ankle. Better. And then he looks at Charmaine. He's like, Mel, I want to apologize for yesterday. I know you were just trying to help, but she's like, it's fine. I understand. I know you're under a lot of stress. She's like, She goes, but I fortunately found you a place to stay in town. Everybody's like, that's great. And Hope. And they're both like, no. In unison. They're like, no. It's like, look, Hope's really looking forward to your company. Oh, my God.
I just love how she says that. But with a straight face, I'm like, oh my God, you're going to have to.
And she's like, look, Doc and I'll handle the communication. You just have to stay there. And we've looked everywhere else. Everywhere place else was either on the second floor or too far away. And this is the only thing that works. And Hope will, with Jack and, it'll be nice and it'll be good. And they're like, oh, really? And like, yeah, we need to keep you close. And this is the best thing that we found. And they're like, well, what about this place? What about that place? It's like, no, we tried. This is it. It's that or the hospital. And she's like, fine. They're trying to just talk her into it. I mean, trying to make it sound like a good idea, but
not only her, but also Jack.
Yeah, Jack's like, because oh man,
Jack is not looking forward to spending any time near Hope at this point because he still hasn't forgiven her.
No.
So
and it's going to be he may have forgiven her, but he's not going to forget for sure. It's going to be a minute.
Yeah,
so he tells them they'll gather her stuff and tell Hope that they'll be over there in a couple of hours. It's like, okay, oh my. And Doc and Mel just kind of look at each other and go, oof. Yeah, they'll be fine. It'll be fine. He goes, oh, I know you don't believe that. She's like, no, I don't.
She just laughs at him because
like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
Not a damn thing. And then another amazing
Oh
scene.
my God.
And now
Every scene. Every
and then
transition is a beautiful
I know.
scenery.
Yeah. And then
We're at
Hope's
Hope's.
place. Hope's got a lovely little place.
Yeah, she does.
And so we're back at the famous bedroom.
This is the bedroom where Charmaine is going to stay.
Yeah, and it's the guest bedroom because and we know the mattress story with this bedroom.
Oh, this is coming. Yeah. Oh yeah, with the whole. Oh my gosh, yes, with the mattress. But apparently it's back to the regular mattress that's probably lumpy because maybe she'll think that Charmaine won't stay very long. I don't know.
Very long, yes, exactly.
So Mel's like stripping the bed and, getting everything off of it. And she's like, you did a really great job of, getting the room ready for Charmaine. And she goes, all I did was turn on the light. It's like, oh, well, your assistance is invaluable. And then, Hope is shocked that they actually went for this. Like, she's like, I can't believe they went for it. She goes, well, it's a home-based wellness something or another. She goes, yeah, I stopped listening to you and your whatever you want to call it. You call it whatever you want to call it. We just want to make sure that Charmaine's okay, and Doc and I will take care of the communication. And she goes, wait a minute. I thought if her staying here means that everything is fine with me and Jack. And Mel's like, well, you need to just give him some space. He is still upset. And she goes, wait a minute. What are you talking about? And she's like, oh, look, the doorbell. Gotta go. So she's limping toward the door. And she's like, but wait a minute. We're not done. And she pushes her out of the way and she's, get out of the way, Limpy. She opens the door to them, to Jack and Charmaine. And she's like, in the words
of Benjamin Franklin,
guests like fish begin to smell in 3 days. And the look on Mel's face and Jack's face and Charmaine's face is like, what the hell is she talking about? It's like, and she's so matter of fact about it too, which is so funny. She's like, yep.
And she said, and Mel's like, why don't I show you to your room?
Let me just show you to your room. Let's just, this way, please.
And the thing about it is, it's not hello, thank you for coming,
no.
or whatever it is.
Nope.
She just hits them with a quote from Benjamin.
And Mel gives her such a side eye the second, like, that Charmaine walks past her and heads to the room. Like, what? What do you do? What? What is that? So Jack's like, okay, I'm going to go get her bags. And Hope is just looking at him like, okay, does this mean we're good? Are we okay? And so she follows him out there. And she's like, look, Jack, I know you're still mad at me, but can we please talk about this? He's like, look, I don't have anything else to say. She's like, I've apologized in every way possible. Look, he forgave her weeks ago. She's like, you're not upset with me anymore? He's like, no, I just don't want you to be involved in my personal life anymore. She's like, no problem, got it, no more interfering. He's like, I said involved. Well, what's the difference? Interfering is when you're disruptive. Involved is when you're a part of something. So he's telling her, I don't even want you a part of anything. Like, I don't want anything. We can be cordial, we can be pleasant, but he's not going to share anything with her. He doesn't want her to share anything with him. He just wants to keep his distance for now. And maybe they'll, I don't know, earn some trust back. It's going to take time.
Yeah. And
so
that's very disappointing. Yeah, that's very disappointing for her because that's not what she was hoping for.
Well, she's like, I've always thought of you as family, and family are always in each other's business because they love each other. And he's like, yeah, I know you've been family, and he's thankful, very thankful for that. But family is also about trust. And right now he can't trust her. And until he can trust her, things have to be this way, which is very strained. Yeah. Which is very upsetting for Hope.
Well, this is how we learn our lessons,
And Hope has had to learn a very hard, valuable lesson. This one was rough for her. She's
I would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's going to have a hard time with this one. But anyway, so back in the bedroom now.
Back in the bedroom, and Charmaine is like, I thought you said Hope was excited to have me here. And she's like, what was all that about fish and whatnot? in 3 days. And she was like, oh, she's just kidding. She's just kidding. You can stay here as long as you need to until you're back on your feet, and I'll go get you a glass of water. I mean, she does not want to spend any time with her. Now, Hope comes barreling in, like walking like a woman with a purpose. And she's like, uh-oh. So she sees Jack going down to the car to get Charmaine's bags, and she decides to go talk to him. And so she limps her way down to the car and asks if he needs some help. And he's like, nah, I've got it. I'm good. And look, I know this isn't ideal. And he's just like, oh my gosh, Hope. Ugh. No matter how sweet she's being, you know, she's always trying to get what she wants. And trying to keep her out of his life, he says, is like pushing water uphill. And Mel thinks that's funny. She laughs about it. And he was like, what? And she said, that's accurate description
of who Hope is.
Of Hope's essence. Absolutely.
Exactly.
He's like, well, it's not funny. She's like, yeah, I'm sorry. It's, you know, it's like she's just trying to make things up to him by doing something nice for Charmaine, because obviously Charmaine she is not a fan of Charmaine. And honestly, if it were any other situation, she wouldn't give Charmaine a glass of water if she was on fire. So the only reason she's doing this is because it has something to do with Jack, and she figures if she can sort of manipulate the situation to get some good graces with Jack, that maybe that will help. And
it's not.
We'll see how that goes.
Well, Jack's on to her, and you know, because Jack has spent enough time with Hope to know what.
He knows her shenanigans.
Right, he knows what she's capable of.
Absolutely.
And so that's the thing. So now he doesn't want to have anything to do with that. You know, he doesn't want to be manipulated.
And I mean, Mel sees Hope trying. Like, she sees, maybe Jack hasn't seen it all, but Mel, because she spent so much time there and with them and everything, she sees Hope trying. And she's like, you know, just give her a little bit of, you know, cut her some slack. And he's like, I'm being civil. And she's like, well, you know, come on, Jack, she's trying. And he's like, sometimes trying's not enough. And she's like, well, aren't you being a little harsh? And he was like, wait a minute. You're calling me harsh? She's like, well, you're just being harsh. You're just being a little harsh. Because you know what harsh is? Walking out on someone without an explanation.
Ooh, and look at
That's harsh. And that's when it just cuts deep. She's like, he is mad that I left. Yeah. Like, I thought we were cool. We are not cool. And he just sent him over the edge.
Yep.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot to come back from.
Yep, because I think with all that was going on with, you know, the diagnosis and then the break-in, they haven't really addressed.
No, they never talked about it. Her leaving
they
and why.
Exactly. They haven't really addressed that situation. And so now this situation's come up, and basically he's like dinging
right in their face. Yeah, it just put it right in the forefront, and now they're going to have to deal with it.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So now we're back at Paige's house. And we have Christopher sitting in the bedroom playing video games with headphones on. And the dad is brushing his teeth. And we see Paige come upstairs, and she shuts Christopher's door. Because she's always kept him away from as much of the violence as possible. And she explains to the husband that they're not leaving. And he was like, what? What are you talking about? He's like, what did you just say to me? And keep in mind, he is an abusive husband. He's already left marks on her face. And she's like, we're not leaving. I mean, she has a life here. And he's like, well, what are you going to do? You're going to call the cops? I am the cops. There's nothing that she could do. She's a fugitive. She's a batterer. You know, she's the one that left town. You know, all he has to do is make a phone call, and she's in trouble. And she's like, he's my son, and you're not going to do anything to do. I'm going to protect him. I'm not going to let you hurt him. And he just reminds her, oh, well, you think a judge is going to believe that? That's why there's a restraining order. And she's like, yeah, but because you lied. And he said, it doesn't matter, because I'm in a position, I'm calling the shots. And he grabs her around the neck, and he was like, go get my son. And she, straining because he's holding her neck, she says no. And he said, fine, then I'll do it myself. And just as he's doing that, she kind of struggles with him, and he loses his footing and falls backwards down the steps. Ends up at the bottom.
Best thing that ever happened to that bastard.
Yep. And
So
as far as
we
we
leave.
know, he's laying at the bottom of the steps.
Exactly.
And
And we leave that scene
to
to
another
a nice,
beautiful
beautiful.
scenery shot of the mountains and the river and the blue sky of Virgin River. You know,
we leave trauma to calm.
yes.
You
And
know,
let's
you know
go
what
to
I mean?
Jack's bar. Let's go to Jack's bar. And so all
And
the sewing circle ladies are sitting around and they're doing their thing, and Ricky's running around filling up coffee, and he's laughing, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, these sewing circle ladies are going to kill me because they constantly are wanting something. Oh, can I have a glass of water? Can I have more sugar? Can I have some ice?" And it's like, really?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "That's okay. You're a good soldier. At least you'll be ready for boot camp," because he's going off to boot camp at the end of the school year. So
Yes.
Doc comes in and he sits down and he's gonna have his usual, and he's like, "But you know what? I'm gonna switch it up today. I'm gonna have mustard instead of mayonnaise." Wow, he's such a trailblazer, isn't he?
Tell me about it.
Oh my gosh. So
Yes.
Connie is talking about
Her
brother
niece, brother, who, yeah.
and who's in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And she may have to come to Virgin River and stay with Connie for a bit because she's in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And her name is Lizzie. And they say that she's more destructive than a tornado in June. And Joellen is asking about her getting arrested. And I guess the brother is a lawyer and he got her off. Yeah, he got her off. And, Connie's like, "Oh, she should have just sat in jail. That would have gotten her attention and straightened her out." So as they're chit-chatting about that, Muriel gets up, and where does she go?
Mm-hmm. And now they're like, where is she going?
Mm-hmm.
And she's, Hope says they're getting a divorce for real this time, and they're like, yeah, I can't keep up.
So she decides to go check in on Doc, and one of the ladies
well,
is like, "Oh yeah, she's asked Doc out. She wants to ask Doc out on a date."
Yep.
And so she goes to get a cup of coffee or tea or something, and she sees Doc at the bar. Of course, she's going to cozy up to him.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, oh, Doc, let me get that." And he has mustard on the corner of his mouth. And how nice of her to grab a napkin and wipe it off.
As I said, the girl, I love this woman. She makes flirt, as you said,
with a tree.
With a tree. So, yes. And he's talking about he eats most of his meals there.
Well, she asked if Hope cooks for him. And he was like, sometimes, but I eat most of my meals here. And she goes, "Oh, that's a shame." Like everything that Hope does is bad. I know. But she kind of says it in such a way, "Oh, that's terrible." Like it's tragic that sometimes you have to have a meal at the bar. Mm-hmm. Hope doesn't feed you. Oh, sure she does. Sometimes, when she's in the mood. Then, of course, Muriel's like, "I'm always in the mood to cook." She goes, "Oh, I just waste so much food being single. Oh, my gosh." And he's like, "Oh, you just need a good set of Tupperware for that." And then they discuss the leftovers and how they're dry. Yes. And he was like, "Oh."
It basically, her form of way of, chatting him up.
This is foreplay.
Yes. This is her. Yes.
She's going to do whatever she can to get close to Doc.
Lord. And so Doc is telling her how to keep the leftovers better protected.
Yes.
And
she decides to go back for a little more when she's, instead of just walking away, got to get back to the girl. She's like, "Doc, I'm slow cooking a pork roast at the house. Would you like to join me for dinner?" And he was like, "Oh, I don't know. You could show me the correct way to double wrap my leftovers." It's like, oh, really? He's like, "You know what? Sure. Why not?" She's like, "Wonderful. Here's my number if you need to call me. Cocktails at 5:30 sharp." And he was like, "Oh, all right then." And then she goes back and sits with the ladies.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then a Preacher's like, "So, how's Hope going to feel about that?" And he's like, "Oh, she's going to be thrilled." And Preacher's like, okay, if you say so. Have you met Hope? Like, really? I don't know if I believe that.
That's exactly what Preacher's thinking in the back of his mind. He's going, are you and I talking about the same Hope?
Exactly.
He's got that look as such.
Yeah.
And so in the meantime, Preacher's phone rings. and it's Paige,
She's
and
frantic.
yeah, and he's trying to tell her that it's busy there, but she's like,
I need you. I need you.
yeah,
It's
it's
urgent. I need you to
urgent.
hurry.
Hurry,
I
yeah.
just took Christopher over to Connie or over Lily's or somebody's, and I need you to come over here right away. And he was like, "Okay, okay, fine. I'll be right over." Now Jack's just pulling up at the back of the bar. They got a full house. There's a lot of people there. And he was
Mm-hmm.
like, he gets out of the car, he moves his jacket, and he sees that Charmaine left her medicine in a little bag on the front seat, and she needs it. So he's gonna have to go back. Now, while he's doing that, he gets a phone call from Mike, and
Yes.
this is his buddy from the Marine Corps, and he's chit chatting it up, and he was like, "Hey, how you doing? I got a question for you. Whatever. How's it going? Oh, I'm dating some girl my pastor set me up with." And he was like, "Look, we might have a problem here. There's a guy who pulled a knife on our nurse, and I want to check him out. I think that this Calvin guy from the pot farm might be involved, and I was wondering if I send you some info, would you check it out? Maybe it's a one-time thing, maybe it's a bigger problem we don't know about, but." And Mike's like, "Yeah, no problem. Send me what you got. I'll check it out. I'll get back with you." Because he's a detective in LA. And
Yep.
so he hangs up with him, and he's got to head back to give Charmaine her medicine. But as he's doing that, Preacher walks out the back door, and he was like, "Hey, man, I got to run. Paige has an emergency. I got to head out." And he goes, "Is this something you got to do right now?" And he's like, "Yeah, I got to do this right now." And he goes, "Okay, come back as soon as you can. Sure, Ricky can handle whatever's going on in there." So he calls
He
Ricky.
left Ricky there by himself.
Well,
He's got
there's two waitresses. There was the two
okay.
ladies that are
I,
there.
di- I
He's not
didn't I
alone.
didn't okay, I didn't see the two waitresses.
Yeah, there's other
But
people there.
okay, because I'm like he's a teenager, and
Yeah,
he
but he
has
practically can run that place. I mean, he's been there for years. He knows
yeah.
what needs to get done, and he's been there, right with Jack the whole time. So he calls him, and he was like, "Hey, I just got to run a quick errand. The lunch rush is over. I'll be back as soon as I can." And he was like, "I'll do the best I can. I mean, whatever."
Yeah. So now we're back at Hope's place.
Oh my God,
I
Hope.
just love I love this scene. I can't even tell you
Hope
why I love this
just
scene.
likes to make everyone's life just that much more difficult and complicated.
She didn't get what she wanted from Jack, so she's not obligated to help anybody at this point. Let me tell
And
you.
she doesn't like
She's
Charmaine anyway.
exactly. So what do we find? We find Hope is his
Being a
God.
pest. She's being a
Hmm.
pest. She's
She's got
turned on the vacuum cleaner and left it on and has the
and has
TV
the
turned up all
TV
the way.
loud. Exactly. And she's sitting there reading a book, and Charmaine is asking her when she's going to be
She's like,
finished,
"Are
and
you
she's like,
almost
"Oh,"
done?"
and she's
Oh
like,
my
"I'm
God.
almost done because the vacuum is giving me a headache." And this is Hope basically. Don't mean to play on words, but she wants that woman out of her house,
Yeah.
and she is going
Yeah,
to
this
do
isn't
everything
getting
in
her
her
any closer to Jack, so she's over
exact
this.
exactly. So, and Charmaine has a towel wrapped around her head, and she looks absolutely god awful.
Yeah, she's
And
not happy.
and she was like, "Well, at least could you change the channel?" And
She's, "I'll be done soon. I have a lot of area to cover. Whatever."
oh
And
God, it's so.
just then,
Mm,
Mel walks in.
uh,
And Hope is like, "Huh, well, I guess I no longer need people to knock, Just, she's like, "What is going on here?" She was, "I'm just enjoying a little me time." She turns off the TV. She turns off the vacuum cleaner. She's like, "Yeah, you're just trying to drive your house guest away." And she goes, "Oh, I'm old and lonely." And she goes, "I never said you were old." She goes, "Well, exactly what kind of game are you playing here?" He said, "Hey, I took a page out of the Hope's guide. You lured me here to get me to stay. So I just used a little bit of what you did to me on you. I believe you've been hoped." I love that.
mm.
She goes, "I was just trying to secure medical assistance for Virgin River." She goes, "Yeah, well, I'm trying to do what I have to do for the health of my patient."
Patient. Hmm.
So she goes, "Yeah, well, what are you going to do when this whole thing blows up?" "And it will, and it'll be your fault." She's like, "Whatever." Take a deep breath. Just deal with it. So
Yep.
she goes in to check on Charmaine, who is fluffing pillows, trying to get comfortable. She's like, "I can't stay here. Hope's giving me a migraine." She goes, "Yeah, she does that to people. But I talked to her. She'll be fine now. It's okay. Don't worry about it." So she's less nauseated than the day before as long as she stays lying down. And so Mel's like, well, at least you're not getting worse. So here's some chicken broth in a thermos, and for dessert, some magazines. She's like, oh, I can't keep anything down. And she's like, just try, please. Thanks for the magazines. Like that was actually really nice of her. So she's gonna go get her some water and a glass of water and a spoon, and she sees Jack come in. Jack won't even look at her. Like he looked down and away, and Charmaine saw that, and she's like, what is that about? He goes, oh, nothing. Here, you left your medicine in the truck. She's like, oh, sorry. He's like, no problem. So what happened with you and Mel? Like right back at it. Nothing. I don't know what she's talking about. He goes, you couldn't even look at her. Did you guys have a fight? Did she say something? Did she do something? He's like, no, I don't know. He's like, well, what do you mean you don't know? How can you not know?
It's like she keeps pushing.
Yep.
You know.
Is it something she did? Is it something she said?
Yeah, because she's hoping for an edge here.
Well, she's like, I just hate to see you upset. You're such a liar. Such a liar. He's like, I'm fine.
Thanks. I'm fine. You're absolutely right, by the way, she says.
The only thing that
matters
is our baby. And then she reaches her hand out. Come here, to hold his hand. And he's just like, oh, do I really have to hold this woman's hand? So Doc's walking in the kitchen, and Mel is pissed, and she can't find a spoon. She's opened every cabinet, every drawer, and she can't find a spoon anywhere. And apparently Hope keeps her silverware in the bottom drawer. Like, makes no sense.
Makes no sense,
And he's like, yeah, this is the same woman that keeps her cleaning fluid next to the coffee. But whatever. It's Hope. So he's asking, how's Charmaine? And so Mel said that she's, doing about the same. And he goes, wait, we need to go in there and get her vitals and check. And she's like, Jack's in there right now, so can you do it? He's like, I have a patient coming in an hour. And he's like, why? What? Like, this is like teenage behavior. This is like a bunch of teenagers who aren't getting along. And she's like, oh, we're not talking right now. And he was like, why not? I mean, it was such a dad way of saying that. Like, what? What's going on now? What's the problem? And she's like, I don't really want to get into it. He's like, fine, whatever. And so she's like, can you just go give these to Charmaine? It's a spoon and a glass of water. And then dad words of wisdom. Can I give you a piece of advice? And she's like, okay. In my experience, when you let something simmer too long, eventually it'll boil over and extinguish your pilot light. And she was like, oh, that's quite poetic.
Yes.
I love it how he says, oh, I've been known to dabble in the written word. And apparently he used to be an English major, but because his father was a country doctor in a small town, he decided to follow in his footsteps. So he gave up being an English major. And
that's very sweet.
Decided to follow. And she said, oh, that's so sweet and generous of you to give up something you love. And he's like, oh, don't get ooey and gooey on me. You'll mess up my reputation. So she didn't have to go back in there where Jack was, which is good. She'll just wait until Jack leaves. So Preacher shows up at Paige's house, and he looks at her and is like, what happened to your face? Because that's not right. When last time I saw you, you didn't look like that. She pulls him into the bedroom and uncovers the ex-husband's dead body on the floor. And she's like, yep, that's my ex, Wes. It was an accident, I swear. He was trying to get in Christopher's room, and you believe me, right? He doesn't even think twice. Oh, absolutely. Whatever you say, that's what happened. I confess. And he's like, oh, no, you're not. No. He's like, Wes is a cop, and all of his cop friends. And that's going to be bad because they're going to think I did it on purpose, and he's got a restraining order against me, and he was going to take Christopher. And Preacher's like, oh, okay, this is a bad situation.
Yes, it is indeed. Indeed.
So we're back at the clinic, and Doc is saying goodbye to a patient, and Hope shows up, and they sneak a little kiss, and I think she has his lunch or something. And she's like, oh, with Charmaine in the house and Mel always here, we don't even have 2 minutes to be together. We can thank Miss Monroe for that. And she's like, well, at least it's only a few more days. And he reminds her that it's going to take a little longer than that. It could be another week. And so she's like, yeah, that Mel, she's smart as a fox, got Charmaine in there, tried to talk to Jack. And I don't know, things may never be the same between them. And, Doc knows Jack.
He just needs time.
He needs
and the
time.
thing, Hope does not do well with patience.
No.
She does not do well with patience. She doesn't have any. It's non-existent. I can relate to that.
And he's like, look at us. Look at us. Did you ever think that we would be back together? And look at how that turned out. And she's like, yeah, I think I even remember saying I'd never wanted you to darken my doorstep ever again. And here we are. And so he's like, have some patience, just wait it out. And she's like, wait a second. Why are you dressed up? He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, your belt matches your shoes and you have a what's going on? He's like,
only a wife would notice these
right?
things.
So she finds out that he's having dinner with Muriel. And she's elated. She's like, oh, that's perfect. He goes, no, it's just dinner. Well, you better not have it be more than dinner, but this is perfect. This is great. This will throw everybody off our scent, And that's all she's worried about is making it look like it's not. So now we're back at Paige's house, and Preacher's trying to reason.
And because her natural instinct is to run because she's been doing it for so long. She doesn't know what to do. He's a cop.
Well, he made it out to look like she was the one that's the problem.
Exactly.
So anything that if they turn her in or they call the cop, she's the one that's going to look bad. I mean, as far as they know, he's just a good cop. He's a detective, and she's the problem.
He's the perfect father, yeah.
Right. She's the aggressor, and she's the one that did this and did that, and she stole the son, and, so she's the one that looks bad. Yep. And Preacher's like, but I can talk to the sheriff. She's like, no, you don't understand. It's all going to be bad for me. It doesn't matter because he fixed it so that I'm going to look like the bad person.
Yep. There's a warrant out for her arrest.
Yep.
So,
and as much as we don't like it, that's the reality that we're dealing with. And she doesn't have any family, and could he please just take Christopher? She doesn't want him to end up in foster care, or God forbid he ends up with Wes's crazy family. She doesn't have any family, so Preacher's the only person that she even knows to ask, and the only person that she can trust.
Yeah.
And so she just doesn't want anything to happen to Christopher. And so she's like heartbroken because she just doesn't even know what to do. I mean, she's like, what was I thinking? That I could actually get away with all this? That I could try to have a life? That I could try to protect my son? Preacher's just trying to be supportive and trying to, explain to her that he knows who she is. He knows that she was defending her son and herself. And she was doing what she needed to do. And that's why he became a Marine, to defend the people that can't defend themselves. That's his code of conduct. And so he's like, all right, I want you to go upstairs, pack your things for you and Christopher, but only things that can fit into the trunk because we don't want to alert any suspicion, if you have a bunch of stuff in your back seat. And you're going to leave. You're going to leave Virgin River and you're going to go. And he's going to take care of the body. And she's like, no, you can't do that. You're going to get yourself in trouble. And he's like, look, I will take care of this. You need to get out of here. Go get Christopher from Lily and just get out of town. And he said, sometimes there's situations that you have to work outside of the law, and this is one of them, and he will take care of it. And she's just like, I don't think she's had any help ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's always done this on her own. She's had to do this on her own. And
she's been doing the running so long.
Yeah. And she's like, and when I get where I'm going, I'll call you. And he's like, no. You can't, you don't want them to find you. So just go. He was a dangerous man. You don't have to fear him anymore. He's out of your life. Go get out of town, take Christopher and go live your life. And she gives him like a kiss on the cheek. I think that's one of the closest they ever came to a relationship.
Yep.
Which is interesting because in the books, they wind up together, they get married, they have a baby. I mean, it's like a whole thing.
Right, it's
Sorry if that's a spoiler for anyone who hasn't read the books, but it's pretty much early on and it goes through the entire series.
Right.
But yeah, they definitely end up together in the books. So Preacher calls Jack and he says some story about she has to go out of town for an emergency and he's helping her shut the water off and he'll be there as soon as he can. So who knows? Is he going to put Wes in the back of his trunk and then deal with it later tonight or whatever? Like drive around with a dead body in your car? Like, because there's no way he's going to get right back.
No.
So as the sun goes down, we have another lovely scene of the river and the sunset, and Doc is showing up right at 5:30. I'm sure, very sharp. And there's Muriel in a red dress, ready to party.
Mm-hmm.
And he
lady in a red dress.
He brings her a gift.
Saran wrap.
Yes, just to make sure she can wrap her leftovers. How nice.
She has a lovely house.
Oh, she's supposed to be like an actress. So I guess she's got some money or something. It doesn't ever say she was married. Mm-hmm. So I don't know.
Well, she has a lovely house, but the dress is a killer dress.
Oh yeah, it's like there's little black dresses. That's her little red dress.
Exactly. It hits all her curves.
Yep.
In the
she looks fabulous.
She looks fabulous.
Fabulous.
I told you. She looks great. And as I said, she has a lovely home.
Oh yeah, she got the fire going and the candles.
All the candles.
She has a glass of red wine the second he walks up to the door, and then they sit down on the couch and he was like, "Oh, backgammon? Oh my. I used to play backgammon all through medical school, thousands of games. It's like a way to keep your brain working but not really thinking. Just to keep your brain moving." And so she said they like to play sometimes for money, sometimes he won, sometimes he lost. And she was like, "Oh, well, would you like to play?" And he was like, "Really?" And he's like, "Well, yeah." She's, "Why don't you set it up and I'll go get the bottle of wine and the baked brie."
Oh, baked brie.
And he's like, "Really? Like, this is a little something that just makes him happy." Yeah. A little game of backgammon.
Yeah. Because not everybody plays backgammon.
Well, and it's something that he's always enjoyed, and I'll bet that Hope never even knew.
No, exactly. So. That's probably true. But all right. So now we have
here we go. We're back at the bar, and Mel shows up. It's closing time. I mean, there's nobody there. Everything's locked up, and she knocks on the door, and Jack is at the bar, going through receipts and whatever. And she knocks on the door, and he sees somebody at the door, so he goes over there and he heads to the door
and then he opens it for her and he unlocks it
and he was like, "Hey." She walks in and she's like, "Okay, this has to stop." And he's like, "What?" She goes, "You being pissed at me." And he's like, "What?" He's like, "Today you wouldn't even look at me." He goes, "Okay, fine. If you're gonna yell at me, at least you could buy me a drink." She's like, "I'm just here to clear the air so we can move on with our lives." He's like, "Fine. You want to move on with your life?" "Yeah, that's exactly what I said." It's like, "Well, how are you going to do that?" It's like, "We're just going to get everything out in the open. We can go back the way things were." He goes, "Oh."
He was like, no, it doesn't work that way.
Things don't ever go back. So he pours them each a shot. He takes his, and he's eyeballing her to take hers. She's like, "Fine." So she takes it, makes a face, and then...
And they're stressed.
Oh. Yeah. She's like, "Look, I'm sorry." And sincerely, I mean, so sincerely, "I'm sorry that I left without saying goodbye." And he goes, "Are you sorry for not saying you came back?" And she's like, "Yes, I'm sorry." And he goes, "Do you accept my apology?" She's like, "Yes." Can we be friends now?" He's like, "No." She's like, "Oh my God, really? Like, what do you want from me?" And he goes, "I just want you to be honest with yourself. You say you want to move forward, but you're not acting like it." It's like, what makes you an expert? You've never been married. You've never buried a spouse. You have no idea what that feels like. And he comes back like, "Wait a minute. I've buried people I've loved that haunt me to this day. So don't tell me that I don't understand hurt." We both have that in our past.
You can tell she knows that because of his
it's like
his
once
dreams.
It came out of her mouth, she was like, "Oh, I shouldn't have said that."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Look," she goes, "Look, we can have a chance. There's a chance for us." And she goes, "You think I like feeling this way? I'm never going to see my husband again. I'm never going to hold my daughter again. And letting myself love you," which right there tells you that she was already feeling it by even saying that, like, letting myself love you. She's like, I can't do it again. I'm not that. He goes, "Mel, I'm not going anywhere. She's like, please. You
You can't
after
promise that.
after what happened with her husband and an accident and her daughter, which you couldn't have helped that. She doesn't have faith in anything. She's not
Yeah.
holding on to anything. She's living her life 1 minute at a time because she just can't hold on to anything. And he's like, at some point, you have to have a little bit of faith. And she's like, I can't. She had faith, and look what happened. She thought she was going to have a perfect life with, a husband and a family, and everything was going to be great, and it all got taken away. And she said that she can't get hurt. She's just not that strong. And he, asked her if she's too scared to even try, and she's like, I can't.
She says, yeah.
She just doesn't have it in her. She's been through so much pain and loss that she just doesn't have it in her to go through anymore.
And Jack doesn't know what to do,
No, she's like, you should be with somebody else. And he was like, no, you don't say that. I don't want somebody else. He's like, I want you. And she's like, I can't do this. I'm sorry. And she leaves out the back. That's where her car is parked. And he's just like, oh, really? So she's pissed. She gets in the car. She's sad. She's hurt. And she just sits in the car. She goes to start it, and the stupid thing doesn't start. Like, oh, are you kidding me?
I don't know if this is a great advertisement for BMWs. You know what I mean?
I think it's very apropos. It's just, sometimes everything happens for a reason, and this had to happen. Because if her car would have started and she would have went home, who knows where they would be right today.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, this it's like this had to happen this way for things to happen the way that they went.
Yeah.
So
she starts the car.
She is not happy. The car won't start. It's like just one more thing, and she is pissed, and she screams, and she bangs on the steering wheel. And she has like, I cannot take, like, one more thing. Like, I am spent. Like, I am done. I can't take it anymore. And then you hear the door, and you see Jack walk up to the door. Now, she basically just told him, I can't do this with you. Like, I know you love me. I heard that you love me. You said you're in love with me. But I can't love you back, and I'm going to walk away. And most men would be like, screw her, and go get in their car and drive away. But not Jack, because he hears her probably sputtering with the car, and
also probably heard her
scream. And he comes out there, and it's like he knows that her baby died. He knows that her husband died. And so I feel like he knows all this hurt that she has, that's a big wall that she is not letting down. And he's been chipping away at it a little at a time. And maybe he's getting through a little bit, and he just has to be patient. And he's apparently willing to be the most patient man on planet Earth.
He most definitely is.
But he knows that it's just that it's not really, it's pain. That's what's stopping her. And if he can get through the pain and the hurt, that there's so much more there if he can just be patient and let her have the time she needs to get through it. So he grabs her hand and he gets her out of the car, and she's just standing there like, I'm just done. Like, I don't have anything left. I can't. And all she needs is a hug. So he gives her a hug. It's like, what man would do that? He's so sweet. And he's like, I know. And he just gives her a hug. He's like, I know. It's like so sweet.
I mean, she's had
so
it,
done. She just can't anymore.
Yeah, she's just pretty much at this point. She's just given up.
Yeah. So he drives her home because she can't drive herself, because that's what Jack does. Like, nope, sorry, not calling you an Uber.
Well, we don't know. God, the last time they waited for a car, you remember what happened?
Yeah, exactly.
So, Bert, we don't know when Bert will be there.
Right. So he says, he's making small talk, because he's like, fine, if you don't want to be with me, it doesn't change the fact that he's still going to be Jack. If somebody needs help, if somebody needs something, if somebody, he's still going to do everything he was going to do. It's just maybe not going to be with her. If she needed a ride home, if she, whatever, he's still going to be there for her. So he's like, it's probably the alternator, don't worry about it. I'll call Bert. We'll get your car towed in the morning. We'll take care of it. It's fine. He unlocks the door for her. Like, he takes her right to the door. He could have just stopped and let her out of the car, but no. So he's like, I got your car key. You probably need these. And he goes to hand her the house keys. And she goes to grab his hand for the keys, and she doesn't let go. And he's looking back at her.
And she's looking back at him. And he's got the, it's that look of all of a sudden.
Like, oh,
yeah.
Am I reading the signs right here, Mel? Like, he's going to be very tentative because she's just given mixed signals.
Oh,
so,
after that last conversation they had,
yeah. So they're basically standing there staring at each other. And he's not moving. He is going to be stoic, and he's just going to stand there. And she goes to lean in for a kiss, but she doesn't, she backs up, and he's not going to move. And she goes in for a kiss, and he was like, okay, you open the door. I'm going to walk through it. I don't know what to tell you. You started this. I'm going to finish it.
Yep.
So, the lip locking begins.
This is quite a kiss.
Yes.
This is not like...
No, this is not the first date.
No. And they back up and they get...
Well, and then they get through the front door and he kicks it closed. The keys go flying, right? And then her jacket goes off.
Yep. And it's just, it's lip locking time.
Yep. And the shoes go off and his jacket goes off.
Goes off and, the clothes are
They're
coming
not
off
talking.
Real fast.
They're not having any more conversations.
There's no talking here. This is all about getting down horizontal.
Yep. And her shirt goes and the songs. The song is great.
The song is fabulous. We end up in bed.
Yep. And they stop. They look at each other, and it's like, "Are we really gonna do this?"
Yep.
And we're really gonna do this.
Yep, they're gonna do this.
But it's like they're just she can't not at this point. Yep, that's it.
And that's how it ends.
And that's how we go into the end of the second episode.
That's true. So we'll see if there's any regrets the next morning, or everybody's gonna be okay with it.
Oh.
So we'll find out. You never know.
Yeah, we know.
So
we know.
We'll have to see what happens in episode 3.
Oh yes.
So
it gets very interesting from this point forward.
Doozy. Oh yeah, it's a doozy, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
It's a doozy. So anyway, it was.
It only took a season. 2 episodes, which is about, what did we say, about 2 months?
Yeah.
Now, in reality, they're moving kind of fast. But in TV time, God, that took forever. Because you figure it was lots of looks and stares and experiences and rescuing. And I mean, how many times does he have to rescue her?
That's true.
And, oh my gosh. And then there they are after 2 kisses and a date.
Yep. A couple of kidnappings, a
couple of long talks, a couple of, lots of staring, lots of glaring, lots of smiling.
Yeah. It's, we'll see what happens now.
Very good.
Okay, folks.
That was a good.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes. And we'll be back for another episode of the Virgin River Rewatch podcast. Thank you.
Au revoir.
Bye-bye.